Good morning to you all. I wish you a very warm welcome to this Orgalim policy exchange regarding the Sustainable Product Initiative and the EU Digital Product Passport. My name is Stephanie Mittelam. I'm the Manager, Energy and Environment at Orgalim, representing Europe's technology industries, and it's a very big pleasure and honor to moderate today's event. I will start to briefly introduce you Orgalim, and then I will present to you the agenda for today. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in a nutshell, Orgalim is representing the interest of the European technology industries. We represent three types of different industries. The first one is the mechanical engineering industries. The second one is the metal technology. And the third one is electrical engineering, electronics, and ICT. Regarding figures, so what do we represent? Our members have together an annual turnover of over 2 billion euro, and they directly employ over 11 million people in Europe, with an annual export of above 560 billion euro. And last but not least, our industries comprise of 770,000 companies, and the majority of them are SMEs and micro businesses. Next one, please. So our members association. So Orgalim is an association of a national association. We have 47 member associations in 22 different countries, and we have also several sector associations. So you can see all the logos on the screen, and you have details on Orgalim website. Next one, please. So on which issues Orgalim is working on? Orgalim is working on a very wide range of issues to support the digital and green transitions. And as you can see, we work on issues ranging from digital transformation, energy and environment, topic of today, internal market, trade, legal, innovation and investment. And what I would like to mention is that since the European Commission published a new circular economy action plan last year in March, Orgalim members are really very busy every week analyzing the upcoming proposal from the Commission and doing our best to proactively prepare these important upcoming regulations. We will now move to the next slide, please, and I will introduce to you the agenda for today's policy exchange. So we will start our webinar with two guest speakers from the European Commission from DG GROW. It's really an honor to have two speakers from DG GROW, considering the extremely busy period for them right now to finalize many proposals. So it will be a joint presentation by both Mrs. Paola Zanetti. She's a senior expert legal officer at the European Commission DG GROW, and she will do the presentation with her colleague Michele Galatola. He's a policy officer and really the expert working on the digital product passport. So it's really an honor to have both of them. Our Orgalim member Louise Buneman from Denmark, from the Danish industries. She's the Orgalim Vice Chair of our Environmental Sustainability Working Group. She will then present to you the Orgalim views on the SPI and digital product passports. And we will then hear from four different company industry experts their practical views on the digital product passport. We will start with Mr. Jesper Jerlang, he's standardization manager at the company Danfoss Drives. We will then continue with Mrs. Cathy Paloma. She's the manager sustainability and analytics at the company Konecranes Global Corporation. We will then continue with Mr. Dr. Benedict Rankin. He's the director of the R-Cycle initiative. And our last industry speaker will be Professor Dr. Dieter Wegen. He's the vice president and head of external cooperation at Siemens Technology, and he's also the chairman of the Z4E, one of our German members, Industry 4.0 Management Circle. After all these presentations, we will then have an interactive Q&A session. And as mentioned by my colleague Georgiana, during the event, don't hesitate to comment or ask questions in the chat. And we will then wrap up and mention the next steps. Next slide, please. So this is the nice picture of all our speakers who you will soon discover. Next slide, please. So we will start with our two guest speakers from the European Commission, Mrs. Paola Zanetti and Mr. Michele Galottola from DG GROW. Again, thanks a million, Paola and Michele, for your precious time. It's a very, very busy period for you, and the floor is yours.
Good morning. I have the task to introduce this webinar, and I will do so by presenting quickly, walking you through the Sustainable Product Initiative, the main elements. I am aware that most of you probably already know most of them because you have attended some of our workshops or you have already seen some presentations, so I will not be long. And I will try at the end to highlight a few of the basic, let's say, principles on which we are basing our work today that is ongoing. So first slide, please. The origin of the Sustainable Product Initiative, as recalled by Stephanie, is the new Circular Economy Action Plan that was adopted last year. You are all familiar with it and with this concept of circularity, value retention, reduction of waste, and the focus on the key value chain that is in this plan. The Sustainable Product Initiative finds its origin there. You can see pass on the next slide, please. The idea of the Circular Economy Action Plan is to have this new policy and legislative framework covering the broadest range of products possible to promote a more sustainable production and consumption of products, with the main focus on the reduction on the revision of the Eco-Design Directive, both by extending the scope of the directive that is currently targeting only energy-related products to other products, and to make it deliver on circularity. I think this is the exact quote of the plan. Some of the aspects that are already possible under eco-design are not sufficiently explored or implemented, and some new should be introduced. Then the plan foresees also the possibility to adopt other legislative or non-legislative initiatives linked to the revision of the eco-design directives, and there are also other instruments that are mentioned in the plan and that are closely linked to the Sustainable Product Initiative, and that we will require the particular attention to articulate and to make a coherent package of all this. The main initiatives I'm referring to are the Empowering Consumers for the Green Transition, that is the DG Just initiative, and Green Claims, the DG Environment initiative. I will recall briefly, this gives me the opportunity to recall you that on the SPI, there are 3 DGs currently working, which is my DG, DG GROW, but also DG Energy and DG Environment. So it's a joint effort by 3 Commission Directorate Generals. Next slide, please. So the idea, the Sustainable Product Initiative objective is to make products fit for a climate and resource efficient economy and circular economy, and to reduce waste. And Here you have all the main principles and the main aspects that I've already touched upon, the widen the scope of the eco-design directives, and then the famous list of sustainability principles that go from the durability, improving the durability of products, their usability, upgradability, and reparability. So the idea of keeping the products more in the economy, increasing the recycled content, restricting the single-use products, countering premature obsolescence, the ban of the destruction of unsold durable goods, all this in an effort to reduce waste and to retain value of products in the economy. The SEAP also mentions the product as a service, as something to be incentivized, to be enhanced, and of course the reduction of carbon and environmental footprints of products with requirements on the production of products. Of course, the transition is a twin transition, as we say, so there is the digitalization aspect of product information, which will be the focus of today's exchange, and the possibility to reward, to incentivize sustainable products and sustainable consumption, and the use of other demand instruments that could be like public procurement. And also SEAPs mention also the possibility to include not only environmental considerations, but also social ones. The priority sectors that are indicated by the plan are electronics, ICT, textile, furnitures, and intermediate products such as steel and chemicals. Next slide, please. This, I guess, is the basic introduction. I will now focus on the main elements, the thing that I can actually share with you today, because it's a work in progress. We are currently finalizing the impact assessment report that will be discussed with the board in September. So there are many, many aspects that we are actually assessing, and right now, I mean, currently, while we are speaking, there are other colleagues working. So the main aspects that I wanted to underline are the fact that we are thinking of an harmonization of requirements. There are requirements on sustainability requirements that are popping up in national legislations here and there. The intervention will be an intervention based on the internal market, and with the internal market as the objective. We want to preserve, we want to have harmonized requirements that will apply all over the EU and that will apply to all products made in the EU or made elsewhere that enter the EU market. So this is the idea, a level playing field for all economic actors active in the EU market. Then we are thinking of requirements that will be tailor-made, that will be specific for specific products, and that will be set at the level of implementing measures, so not at the level of the main instrument, the SPI main instrument. A bit on the model of the eco-design functioning. The idea is that product by product, of groups of products by group of products, there will be this specific and tailored exercise of setting requirements. Another very big strand of work for us is the thinking of the appropriate enforcement and market surveillance framework. We are very well aware that all this will be able to function properly only if enforcement is possible, only if enforcement is effective. And we are also aware of the current shortcomings, difficulties of the market surveillance. So this is a part where we are giving much attention to how to set in place a proper framework on that. I've already mentioned some emerging initiatives like the Empowering Consumer and Green Claims Initiative. that will have to be carefully carved with the SPI. They are not the only one. There is also the sustainable corporate governance, for instance. But apart from circular electronics, there are many other upcoming initiatives that find their origin in mainly the SEAP. But there is also another aspect that is very important to us, is that the Sustainable Product Initiative will have to be properly articulated with the existing legislation, both product-specific or horizontal legislation. I'm thinking of chemicals like REACH, ROS, this kind of instruments, big sectoral legislation like construction product regulations, like the many sectoral rules that exist for products in the EU legislation. We will pay particular attention to the proper articulation with these tools, because we believe that we want absolutely to avoid duplication and increase of burden for manufacturers, for importers, for economic actors. So we will decide here again what is necessary to do at general level of the main instrument, but specifically also at the level of the implementing measure, what is the ideal articulation of rules. Next slide. Quickly, this is the timeline. We are so at the end of the public consultation. We are really in this moment assessing the replies and working with our consultants that prepare the study and assessing the options. So we are in a crucial phase. Next slide, please. As I told you already, we work with other DGs, energy and environment. And what else can I tell you? Nothing. I think I told you all about the process. I will now pass the floor, and I asked for the next slide. I'll pass the floor to Michele that will walk you through the passport.
Thank you very much, Paola, for this first part of the presentation. So let's now dig into the digital product passport. As you probably know, this is one element of the SPI work. It has been introduced in terms of announced. It has been announced already since several years through Council conclusions, and then it was in the Green Deal, and then in the Circular Economy Action Plan. So it is something that is surely growing in terms of interest and visibility. And of course, it is, as you can understand, a very complicated file that overlaps between technical, political, trade issues. So there's a lot of things that we need to think and to study in order to have a sound proposal. Overall, what we can say is that we see it as an internal market tool. And so with that respect, we want to create a concept and then, of course, to operationalize it in a way that it should make life easier for our companies operating in the European market, but also for companies selling into the European market. This passport, it makes sense to exist only if reduce the administrative burden on companies and facilitate working and create new business opportunities. If it becomes only an additional burden from the administration point of view, then of course it would be better not to bring it forward. Next slide, please. In this slide, I try to sum up what is the business case, why we are coming forward with this. I mean, we have had a lot of requests. We made already some preliminary analysis, and we see that there is evidence that a passport could be used for example, the tracking of raw materials. It could be used in order to use more and more consistently the digital twins approach. Could be used for remanufacturing, repairability, and recyclability. We see a lot of new business models built around this concept. Of course, as we are a government institution, we see a potential very interesting use in terms of market surveillance and custom authorities, because in any case there is this trend toward digitalization of value chains. We see also a very interesting use, for example, in terms of preparing more sound and better policies, because having the information in a digital form on products placed on the market, of course, will make us have access to information that is very useful when preparing new policies. For example, when preparing implementing measures, having a better understanding of, for example, the environmental performances of products actually currently placed on the market would serve as a big favor in terms of preparing, for example, looking to minimum requirements of classes of performance or other things that we today do, but with maybe less precise approaches compared to having real-time information. And of course, last but not least, there is an important component in terms of business to consumer. So giving to consumer access to some information that is relevant for them, and I'm stressing the some information, in order to make their life easier when they have to take decisions in terms of buying or not buying certain products or having access to certain services. Next slide, please. As Paula said, we have already run a number of consultations with industries, with NGOs, with member states, in general on SPI, but also specific on the passport. And I guess many of you, or at least some of you, were at the workshop that we organized in June on this. This is some, in this slide, I try to put some of the outcomes of these different consultations with specific reference to the passport. And I will not read through, but for me it is important that you know that we are hearing you. We are listening to the comments that we receive, and you will see that a number of the things we are considering to be included in the passport actually are stemming from the comments that you put forward. So let's move to the next slide and let's start to see a little bit more what may be the working principles of the passport. And it is important, as already Paula said, that you take everything that I'm going to say with a bit of a cautious approach, because the things are developing in these very same minutes. And as Paula said, we are speaking and other colleagues are working, and things might still develop, both because of technical new issues that we will find out, but also because of the political considerations behind all of this. So what we are telling you today is how things stand today, without any commitment that they will remain like this tomorrow. In terms of working principles, the idea is to work through a unique identifier, like we call the birth certificate, which will have all the links to the information that the passport will include. And the unique identifier will probably be kept in a centralized registry, and we will see afterwards that this is the only things that will be centralized, because the idea is really to use a decentralized approach. The unique identifier will be vehicled through something like a QR code, an RFID. We have still to see what kind of tag we will use. And of course, the information will be machine readable, because the standardization of the information is an essential element in order to make the passport interoperable. Because this is something also that I want to stress. We do not want to create sector-based passport, because that will be really not even close to ideal from a internal market purposes, but also because the value chain are so much interconnected. So we need set of rules that are the same for all the sectors. We need calculation rules that are the same for all sectors. But then, of course, as we will see in the next slides, the specific information then will be tailored around the sectors. Next slide, please. I know that because I read your position paper, that an important issue for you, of course, for everybody, is the confidentiality of data. And this is a key issue, but also an issue that needs to be addressed in a kind of smart way. One way in order to protect the confidentiality of data that we are considering is, as I mentioned before, the use of a decentralized approach. So most data will stay in the place of origin. There is no need to have centralized database, we think, for the development of the product passport. We know that in the past and still currently we have proposed a number of centralized databases. In some cases they are needed, in some cases they are the only option that we have. In this case, we think it will not be the smart solution. So we are more looking to a decentralized system. The other element related to the managing the confidentiality of data is that, of course, we are looking into the cybersecurity and in the use of encrypted information. That is one of the reasons why blockchain may play a role in the digital product passport. Of course, blockchain is not the panacea, is not the one silver bullet. There are certain things for which blockchain is good. There are other things for which blockchain is probably not the right solution. And the other element related to the confidentiality of data is, as I mentioned before, is that, and I would say this is, at least from DG Grow perspective, the preferred solution. The access to the information should be provided on a need-to-know basis. So you can think of the passport as a big building in which there are thousands of rooms, and each room contains one of the codes or one of the information that we call the attributes. The person walking through this building will not need to have access to all the rooms. Most of the rooms will be black, but in some rooms we will switch on the light, and that will be the type of information that the specific stakeholders will have access to, because he needs to have access to that. So a recycler will probably need to have access to things related to the chemical composition of the products, or where certain chemicals are positioned in the products. Maybe this is not the information that the consumer needs. The consumer will need other kind of information, and governments may need other kind of information, and business-to-business transactions that will need other kind of information. So all the information should be there, but not everything should be available to everybody. Next slide, please. In terms of which information should be there, probably this will not, I would say nearly surely, this will not be already identified in the horizontal legislation that we will introduce the passport, where we will probably only identify the classes of attributes, right? For example, environmental related information, like, for example, maybe social related information, like maybe recyclability or certificates already included. I mean, these will be the kind of general classes of attributes that we will identify. But then the idea is that when we will develop the secondary legislation, the implementing act, at that stage, working in close collaboration with the relevant stakeholders, then we will identify exactly what information is needed, how to calculate it, how to verify it, and who should get access to the different rooms of the building. So this will be product specific. We are looking into the issue of social. We don't have time today to elaborate. It's not yet sure if the SPI will address, and the new eco-design will address social requirements. If we do, probably we will work at the corporate level, but in some case we might go to the manufacturing site level. Another important element is that we want to reuse information that is already provided or already requested through other legislation. And that is extremely important, and this is also very challenging due to formatting issues and other technical issues. But the principle is we use, of course, in circular economy also for data, reuse data whenever available and only require new data when it is needed. And we will have also to look into verification in order to assure compliance. Next slide, please. In terms of the content, so the families of attributes I was mentioning before, we haven't yet drafted the list. So the list that I put it here are just the first things that came to my mind when thinking about it. They could be in, they could be out, I don't know, maybe others would be in, but this is just to give you an idea of what might end up in the list. I know, because again, I read your document, that you are okay with some of them and you are against or strongly against some other elements. We will see. I mean, we will discuss. Of course, there is a reason for having them in. and from our perspective, I understand there is a reason for you for having them out. The fact that they will be included in the horizontal legislation does not mean, again, as I tried to explain before, that automatically we will also have them in the product-specific legislation. I would say that it's better to have them in the horizontal legislation because that gives us more room for maneuver afterwards. While if we don't have them in the horizontal legislation, that it will be more difficult to add them at a later stage. So here, I would rather prefer a conservative approach, keeping open the possibility to open the light or switch on the light of the room at a later stage. And my last slide is about, next slide please. It is about some supporting measures that we are making available, in particular through DG Connect, which is very closely involved in this exercise. There are a number of coordination supporting actions that are going to be published in these days with deadline September to start developing and testing digital product passport concept in a number of sectors. We are asking it for electronic and batteries, and we are also giving the possibility to add a third sector of choice. And there will be also some other calls related to Horizon Europe for developing data space for manufacturing. And then there will be other support for data governance, data infrastructures, and development and deployment of digital technologies. We know that a number of private initiatives are already ongoing. We know that some sectors have already developed their own kind of passport, for example, the automotive sectors. We are trying to learn from them, and because we don't want to do things that are going completely in different directions. But as I mentioned at the beginning, and I really want to end my contribution on this message, it is important for us that if a passport will be established, it is a passport that is cross-sectoral and interoperable. That for us is a key issue. And with this, I can thank you very much for your attention. And of course, Paula and myself will remain here to hear the contribution from the other colleagues and then to address your questions at a later stage. Thank you very much.
Thanks a million, Paola and Michele, for your very interesting presentation with this really important news about the upcoming legislative proposal on the sustainable products. Thanks a lot. We will now move to the next speaker. It's Louise Buneman. She's a member of Orgalim from the Danish industries, and she's the vice chair of our Orgalim Environmental Sustainability Working Group, meeting every week since the publication of the Circular Economy Action Plan last year to try to follow and be as active as we can with all these many ambitious initiatives from the Commission. Dear Louise, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yes, we've certainly been meeting all through the spring. I've been meeting with my members back in Denmark, and I know my colleagues all over Europe have done the same thing, going through this whole questionnaire, question by question. And we've now managed to write 27 pages of a position paper. So I'll try to condense that a little bit for you. If you go to the next slide, and the next one yet, let me start by saying that Orgalim very much welcomes the Sustainable Products Initiative. We think that our industry does have some credit for delivering on the current Eco-Design Directive and the energy savings there. And we believe that we can deliver on the next steps too. Resource efficiency is high on our agenda. And we believe that we can deliver on the technology, not only for our own industry, but also for other industries to really make a difference on the green agenda. If you go to the next slide, we believe that the Sustainable Products Initiative is actually an opportunity for a win-win, because both the environment and the economy can win here. And we believe that producing sustainable products is a business opportunity for us, and it's what we want to do. I was very happy to hear Mrs. Zanetti mention harmonized requirements and preserving the internal market, because we really believe that that is the key foundation for a more circular economy. In the working group, we keep each other informed about what happens in the different countries, and I'm happy to report that most countries prioritize circular economy very highly. But I can also hear that many countries, the policymakers are quite tempted to make national rules, and that is really not the way to go. We in Orgalim, the Orgalim industry is very global, and the more sets of regulations we meet, the higher the burden is for us. So really, the functioning of the single market is very important to us. If you go to the next slide, looking at what a legislative framework should look like for our industry to lead the way for sustainable products. Well, when we've gone through the questionnaire, there's no question that some of these new requirements will have costs. It will cost to change supply chain. It has cost to perhaps switch out one material for another or change the design of a product. So we believe that it's the basis of the requirements should be that they deliver environmental gains at the same level as, at least at the same level as the costs. They must deliver on the environmental gains, so the costs are worth it. And in that case, in looking at our industry, we can conclude that one size does not fit all with these requirements. And a lot of the discussions we had in the working group were on, well, the answers were, well, that really depends on what kind of product we're talking about, or that depends on if it's business to business or business to consumers. So really, there's a big difference on how the requirements will work for an industry producing machinery to other companies, or an industry producing sweaters to sell on the high street. Therefore, we ask for requirements set sector by sector and product by product. If you continue to the next slide, the digital product passport is definitely a key instrument here. And we see a great potential in this passport. We see the potential to track materials and have better market surveillance, and also all the environmental, the reuse, the repair, the recycling. Those are great potentials. And even more perhaps that we have hopes that this way of gathering information can maybe make it even easier for companies. That will really add value for us. But we also have some worries. We worry, how will we deliver all this information? How will we find it? And how will we make sure that our confidential information remains confidential? If you go to the next slide, how can a passport add value for us? Well, by being consistent with existing requirements and only asking companies to enter the data once. Don't add another layer. Also by respecting that some information only authorities should be able to access. Protect our confidential information. But also perhaps making clear the responsibilities of all the actors in the value chain. And most of all, please, by inviting industry to be part of the development of the passport. And I heard our guest speakers saying that they were going to do that, and I'm very happy to hear it, because we really want to be part of it and help identify what data, what information is the most relevant. Next slide, please. Looking at the questions in the questionnaire on the content of the digital passport, some of the information we are very happy to deliver, of course, on safe use and recycling, etc. But if you continue to the next slide, please, we also have some worries, because to put it a little bluntly, we are afraid that we will be asked to make public our trade secrets, such as our supply chains, such as the substances of products, such as technical drawings. We are afraid that competitors will take that information, even competitors outside of the EU, and run with it. So that's a very important issue for us to be assured that our confidential information will be protected. So in conclusion, I would say that the passport has a lot of potential, and we would like to be part of developing it. Next slide, please. On circular business models, I will just say that we very much support, especially the product service systems, which we see as a way of making business out of making sustainable products. And it really works. And I can understand how policymakers can be tempted to try to legislate on this, but we will caution against that. We believe that policymakers should not be making decisions on business models. Companies do that better on their own. Policymakers should instead try to concentrate on keeping the playing field as level as possible. And if we go to the next slide, the Eco-Design Directive is a good example of a way of legislating that keeps the playing field level, meaning that it sets the same standards, sets the same requirements for products, whether they're produced inside or outside of the EU. And we very much support this instrument. We support it because it has a scientific approach, because it has a life cycle approach, and it uses harmonized standards and looks at things product by product. And we very much hope that the continued work and also the widening of the eco-design that will keep to the methods of the current eco-design directive and make sure that the products now covered by the eco-design directive will not be put back of the line because new products are being put into the directive. And finally, I will just mention one of the incentives that we really support, namely green public procurement. I was happy to hear the Commission mention that as well, and of course we've seen it in the CEAP, etc. We believe that can really make a difference for our members, and our members will definitely like to deliver on green public procurement in the years to come. And with that, I think my time is up. And thank you for coming, everyone, today. And we do have 27 pages of opposition paper that you can go look at, and it also has an executive summary. So please.
Thanks a million, Louise, for presenting the Orgalim views. It has been really an intense effort for all our experts in the Orgalim environmental group to come up with this 27 pages of a position. So thanks a lot to our experts. Please read our position paper if you did not already. I see that Paola and Michele from the European Commission already very kindly took the time to read our long position paper, and I could recognize in their slides that they already answered many important concerns and worry we have regarding, for example, the management of confidential data. So thanks a lot, Michele and Paola, for having read our paper. And if you did not already, it's available in the handout. Thanks a lot, Louise. We will now move to the next speaker with Jesper Jerlang. He's the standardization manager from the company Danfoss Drives. Jesper, the floor is yours.
Thank you a lot, Stephanie. I would like to, if you go to the next slide, speak a bit about the complexity and drive your attention to that. I am representing Danfoss Drives, one of 3 business divisions in Danfoss. So when I provide any numbers, it's only a part of Danfoss I speak about. And if we look at the entire organization, it would just add the complexity significantly. But if you go to the next slide, please. We very much welcome the Sustainable Products Initiative and the aim for harmonization. We are a global-oriented company, and we really like all the efforts to harmonize on the European market. In principle, in Danfoss Drives, we only produce one type of product. So digital product passport, that should be easy thing. But actually, what we do is on-demand production of configured products. And I've been told that the possible range of configured elements can be up to 1.5 million different configurations. And we actually right now have like 130,000 active product numbers just for this one type of product. We have production at 10 different sites in 7 countries, half of them in Europe, half of them outside. We have quite complex products with bill of materials that will typically have up to 1,000 lines, so quite many things involved. We have more than 20,000 active part numbers in the bill of materials, and we are dealing with, in Drives alone, 500 active suppliers, 3,700 in Danfoss in total. And it's also important to note that we just don't have one supplier for a given component for a given product. We operate with what we call dual or even multiple sourcing for most components. That means that when we configure special products, that then it can have components from different suppliers depending on the day. Also, if we look downstream at the use of our products, they are used under very different conditions. We mainly supply the industrial market, and the way they are used in operation, in temperature conditions, vibrations, humidity, and all the other environmental conditions is so different, so that it's really difficult to compare how a product would work in different use situations. So next slide, please. We really see this digital product passport as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to increase the transparency and to provide useful information along the value chain. We really see that the information on product environmental performance, on safe use, some of the information relevant for maintenance and repair, and not least handling and recycling at the end of life. This kind of information should really be made available. It should be transparent, and we agree to that. It's very important that we look into relevance when we look at what kind of information should be supplied, who will actually use the information in real life and not just on when we are discussing this could be nice, this would be nice to have, who will actually use the information in real life. And then make it easy to collect it, present this required information, and ensure that it has only to be provided once. If we can do that, we really see this passport as a big opportunity. Next slide, please. But it's also so important to consider this complexity that I just tried to describe, the complexity of value chains. That can be long, that can involve many players with a lot of different data flows as well as a lot of different configurations. So don't try to request data like recycled content or quantities of materials and substances in the product, or the expected lifespan of the product, because that will, in our case at least, vary so much with the use case. And the origin of components can be so complex, and who will actually be able to use this information in real life. I was very happy to see that you mentioned social conditions on an organizational or site level, because that makes much more sense than trying to do it on a product specific level. And of course, you already mentioned protects business sensitive data like technical drawings, printing files, test results, and that kind of things. So our strong recommendation is go for this digital product passport, but be realistic. Consider what is really feasible in real life and be sure to involve industry in this examination so that we get to requirements, get to solutions that really benefits the market and the sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jesper, for your interesting presentation. It's very important to have the practical views of companies. One thing is to write many pages of papers in an Orgalim position paper. Another thing is to hear your really concrete and realistic views. So thanks a lot, Jesper. We will move to the next industry speaker. It is Katy Paloma. Katy is the Manager Sustainability and Analytics for the company Konecranes Global Corporation. Katy, the floor is yours.
Thank you for your introduction, Stephanie. Good morning, everybody. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to share Konecranes' views on digital product passport. I start with a very brief introduction about Konecranes products in next slide. Konecranes provides lifting equipment and services in thousands of locations all over the world, serving a broad range of customers, including manufacturing and process industries, shipyards, ports, and terminals. We offer optimized systematic maintenance services, including spare parts and modernizations, and we offer industrial cranes and lifting systems, and trucks and stackers for container handling, from heavy-duty lift trucks to fully automated yard crane systems with remote monitoring capabilities and intelligent software control. In next 2 slides, I'll present some views from manufacturer's perspective on digital product passport. In general, Konecranes works for circular world for customers and society at large. We make intelligent and connected lifting devices. We work for digitalization and develop our own digital twin. And we see many opportunities in the digital product passport. In the proposal, we support the plan to share relevant product information to specific target groups, but still protect confidential information. We already share for our customers product compliance info in the Declaration of Conformity, technical specification, and safe use instruction in operating and maintenance manuals. And such information could be shared for authorities in DPP when relevant to them. We also use the environmental product declarations to communicate voluntarily about the product group environmental aspects to our customers, but there are not any rules for our products yet, and so this should be kept voluntary. We welcome the plan to utilize existing data sources, and we see alignment, for example, with the SCIP database is necessary. And it's crucial to decide the rules and limits who can access the data and what is ownership of the data. And confidential information like product drawings or IPR must be protected. For us, services and spare parts selling is our business, and that shall not be risked by sharing confidential information in the DPP. We also support the life cycle approach, and lifting equipment have a long lifetime, can be even tens of years. And the data generated during a crane lifetime could tell, for example, about reusability, but we as a manufacturer cannot be responsible for such data, but only when the product is placed on market. Next slide, please. We also see some challenges with the Dbp proposal. We are concerned about high reporting burden and unreliable data that could be caused by product complexity and long supply chains, for example. Our products, let's say industrial overhead crane or ship-to-shore crane, are very complex products with thousands of parts. Also, they are mostly tailored for customer needs, for example, different motor types and different lifting ropes, etc. And what is actually a products, or when do we speak about product group, and how to handle the product in products. In our case, for example, a fan or heater in the crane electric room. And also product structure may change during its lifetime due to modernization and maintenance. We also have manufacturing locations in different regions worldwide, and so are our suppliers located. Supply chains can be very long and changing, and we have dual or multiple sources for components and materials. Therefore, data is hard to get, and it is a risk that it is unreliable then. We see important to avoid too high burden on manufacturers. We as a product manufacturer should not be responsible for raw material and component data too detailed, like lists and quantities of materials and substances, or recycled content of materials, for example. But we think that every player who has the data should be responsible for bringing it for the DPP. That is all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kati, for bringing your, again, very practical perspective from your company. Very interesting. Thanks a lot. We will move to the next industry speaker, Mr. Dr. Benedict Rankin is the director of the R-Cycle initiative, and you will hear that some industries in some countries already proactively came up with a digital product passport idea. Benedict, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Stephanie. So yeah, you're looking for a solution for the digital product passport, at least for plastics packaging. Yeah, we think we have it. R-Cycle shows that industry takes responsibility and can create solutions. R-Cycle is an initiative of the plastics industry, in particular manufacturers of plastics processing machines. Next slide, please. For several years, we, as machine manufacturers, we have been working on eco design, so providing technologies to be able to produce recyclable packaging. This recyclable packaging is here as an example. For example, packaging made of monomaterial. They are in use, but actually does not solve the problem that we have. The packaging is not recycled, even though it is recyclable. And the main reason is because no one knows, at least at the point where it's relevant to know about, no one knows that it's recyclable. So next slide, please. So we thought about how could a circular economy for plastics would have to look like. And one of the problems, of course, is the high diversity and complexity, especially of packaging. And here you need precise knowledge of the components. And here's a link to the digital product passport, because this precise knowledge should be stored in a digital product passport. And this knowledge is the basis for a more precise sorting. And this precise sorting would lead to a high purity recyclate, to a higher quality in recyclate. And this would open up a wide range of possible applications. So we don't want to talk about the downcycling, but we really want to going from an idea to cradle to cradle in the recycling. Next slide, please. So with our cycle, we want to close the loop. We want to connect the two phases of production, of packaging production, and of recycling. Next, please. So the first step is that we want during collection, during the packaging production, we want to collect all this relevant data. All this product and production steps, we will have a unique product identifier, so unique ID for each product. And I think what's very important that we want to use, or what we do, we use already available data collected by the different value chain actors. So there's not necessary to generate more kind of data, but make use of the data that already exists in the different production steps. Then we want to provide this data, of course, to the recycling phase and to all relevant stakeholders. So we work together here with the GS1 because it's very important to have an open and global standard, and this is what we are working together with here. And the basis behind, from a data side of view, is established tracing technology. Tracing technology that is in use for the track and trace of fresh products for over 10 years. And so we, as an easy picture, you can think about we are taking this kind of technology and we're just teaching a new vocabulary of plastic packaging. And so the second major step then is the identification in the recycling process. It's very important that our cycle is technology neutral, so we are open for several marking technologies. So I mean, the marking technology is just a link between product and data. So a marking can be like a tracer, or can be, for example, like digital watermarks. And regarding the digital watermarks, we are strongly and actively working together with the Holy Grail project that focus on this technology. And for the development of standard, we're not only discussing with GS1, we discuss with, for example, Dean Spec initiatives with CFlex or other relevant stakeholders, and of course, associations. So next, please. Yeah, so with our cycle, we connect the different value chain actors, as we see here in examples. In packaging, it can be a kind of complex value chain. I think what's very important is that the idea is that each actor only has to add its own part of the data. So via the unique ID and the network, all data is gradually included. And this reduces the effort so that one participant does not have to gather all the data on its own. So it should make life easier, at least for all of the value chain actors. And as you can see on the picture, this is a system that is already working. Next, please. And this is mainly driven by these technology partners. There are other industry partners who have also contributed a lot to the development. But yeah, these partners are more or less the main drivers. To give you a short overview, the idea is to really build and close the whole value chain. So of course we have GS1 as a standardization partner, but then, for example, we have companies like Kautex who are taking care of blow molding machines, Arburg who's doing injection molding machines, Rückner and Reifenhäuser who are doing extrusion machines. So we have the three major processes of plastics here. And then we have Kamp, for example, who is doing slitting and winding, so which is a further processing step. A company Comexi from Spain who's doing printing and laminating. We know packaging, of course, is printed. We have Multivac who's doing the packaging process with, for example, portioning, labeling, and also marking. Then we have Steinert who's providing sorting technology, so from the recycling side, and Irema at the end who's doing machines for the recycling. So with these partners, we build the whole value chain. So we can integrate all relevant processes. And as I mentioned, very important, we're working on an open standard, on an open solution. Next, please. So yeah, to sum it up, our cycle is not just a concept or a paper tiger, but with its partners, customers, and relevant stakeholders, we already bring our cycle to life. Of course, it is a bit more complex than presented here today, but now we have limited time. That's why I'll be very happy to be available for further discussion afterwards. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Benedict. This was, again, very interesting. And for sure, if participants have further questions to you, don't hesitate to use the chat function. Thanks a lot again, Benedict. We will now move to the last industry speaker. Professor Dr. Dieter Wegner is the Vice President and Head of External Cooperation at Siemens Technology, and is also the Chairman of one of our German associations, Z4E, Industry 4.0 Management Circle. Dieter, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, for the kind introduction. Yeah, next slide, please. We do it not only for ourselves, but we do it exactly for the next generation of our children and the children of our children. So it is a big effort we have to do, and we have to do it now. Next slide, please. First, I want to refer to the Orgalim position, which was shared, which Louise showed us. Next slide. On the left-hand side, you see where we agree in green and we are neutral in yellow. And on the right-hand side, you see in orange and red where we disagree and strongly disagree. I don't want to repeat. Z4E supports exactly the position of Orgalim and was part of the development of this position. Next slide, please. Now I want to refer to the digital nameplate. Next slide, please. In November 2019, after 1 year of hard work with 8 partners, we were able to show a demonstrator of Z4E on the SPS fair in Nuremberg and showed 8 products of 8 different companies, which showed the implementation of the digital nameplate. And what is it? Next slide, please. These are the partners. Big companies like ABB, Schneider Electric, Siemens, but also small, medium-sized enterprises, Lenze, Pepper, Fuchs, Phoenix Contact, and also Rexroth from Bosch. Next slide, please. It is to have a QR code on the product and then find a unified identifier to make an internet link and for identification. And we are already able to form a standard, the DIN spec 91406, and now we are on the way to make it on the international level on an IEC TS 61406, which is written in red. Next slide, please. And if you look on this QR code on the ATP magazine, we make a publication that you can look in our interview when you look at the QR code. Next slide, please. Now the digital product passport. Next slide, please. We believe it is very important to implement the DPP just now, and we are able to do because why? We have a concept developed at Z4E, which is very simple. We take the digital nameplate, which I explained, and this enables the manufacturer of the product to provide any kind of information on this identification link on the internet. And the product information, you can put any product information on. And on the left-hand side, you see, for example, he can provide the information which is mandatory, like the material declaration for products. And there we take a standard IEC 62474, that is state of the art. But for example, for the product carbon footprint, we don't have it yet. I will refer later on that. And so now the idea of the digital product passport is very simple. It is the digital nameplate in combination with any product information shared by the manufacturer. That's all. Next slide, please. And now you remember what Orgalim reference say, okay, we agree and we are neutral. We can put this very easy in, this information. And additionally, which we have to see and take into account, other information provided by the manufacturer for digital services, for digital business, for service provider, and so on. There is a huge potential for digital business and digital economy in the world when you take the blue box. Next slide, please. Now, I want to refer to a Z4E showcase I just kicked off last week. Next slide, please. We make a very small supply chain, which is a supply chain consisting of an OEM, a control cabinet manufacturer. Then we have first tier chain and the second tier suppliers. Next slide, please. And what we do is we make a product carbon footprint for the file cabinet, starting with a screw, going to the terminal block, going to a PLC, and all the ingredients of this fail cabinet we are calculating, and we make a product carbon footprint approach. Next slide, please. So for the screw, next slide, please. When you look in the details, then it's not so easy to make it, because if you look at the screw, you have to look at the scope 1, the direct emissions in the factory. Then you have to look at the scope 2, the energy purchasing in the factory, and the scope 3 of the supply chain. And then it is very obvious that when you look from the manufacturer perspective in the factory, he knows exactly scope 1, scope 2. That is, but it is only 10% of the whole amount of the CO2 footprint. 90% is the supply chain coming to this. So for the screw, it's very easy, because you can make a carbon footprint looking in the databases for steel. But in the case of PCBs or other electronic components, it will become later. Next slide, please. And we exactly makes this happen with under the Z4E showcase, and we form up an Estanium network for all these suppliers in it, so to share the product carbon footprint of their components, of their products, with the digital distributed ledger technologies. And that refers exactly to what Michel refers in his presentation, that he says, okay, we should stay with DLT technologies. And I think that's all. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dieter. This was again an additional very interesting example of a proactive industry initiative in Germany regarding already existing digital nameplate in Germany. Thank you very much. I now kindly ask all the speakers to switch their camera on, so we can have a nice discussion. I see that while the speakers were presenting, many of you already asked a few questions in the chat. And I see that, Michele, you already responded to some of the questions that were asked. Would it make sense? I suggest maybe, Michele, that you answer yourselves to some of the questions you already were active on during the discussion.
Well, I try to reply as extensively as possible already in the chat. So I would suggest to use this time in case there are other questions from the attendees to me, to Paula, or to the other speakers. And for that, instead of repeating what I already provided as written information.
Thank you, Michele. Indeed, I invite you all, I don't know if you have time, but I invite you all to read answers already provided by Michele Galatola from the Commission. I see already provided answer related to the scope of the passport and the SPI. And I see there were also interesting questions, not only for the Commission speakers, but also for the industry speakers, which I find quite interesting. I don't know if these questions were already answered. I don't see it yet to the system. So thanks again, Michele, for having answered questions related to the scope, I see, and whether the DPP will be planned for a single product and the scope. So this you already did. Sorry, my system is a bit slow. So question to, I have another question to you, Michele and Paula, from other questions I received. How will the SPI affect the requirements and implementation of energy-related products, which are already covered by eco-design? And in other words, how would the revision of the eco-design fit with the SPI? If one of you could provide a bit more details related to the upcoming revision of eco-design and SPI, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Sure. Maybe I can start, Paula, and then you complement as needed. Okay. Okay. Well, we say SPI. You should hear eco-design in the sense that the revision of the eco-design directive will be the main deliverables of the SPI initiative. At this stage, we do not exclude that there will be some other flanking legislation attached to coming as a package with the SPI. Nearly for sure there will be a communication that will explain what we have done and probably will announce some elements of the work that will not be included in what we'll adopt in December, but that will come at a later stage. So this is what you can expect, but the eco-design revision for sure will happen with the scheduled adoption is for the 15th of December. As always, we have to factor in some possible delays. So again, no hands on fire that this will happen on the 15th of December. If not, it will happen in the early months of next year. In terms of the scope, as I mentioned, of the energy-related products will remain in scope of the eco-design. Of course, it's not about reducing the scope; it's about enlarging the scope. And the direction of enlargement, as I said, some things are already excluded, like food and feed. Other things are still under consideration. The products for which they are already on the market, of course, will not be affected. Even those for which they are already eco-design implementing measures will only be affected the moment then there will be a revision of the existing implementing acts. So at that moment, of course, the new implementing acts, the revised implementing acts will have to fulfill what will be the legislation existing at this stage. Keep in mind again, as I mentioned in one of the replies, that if we adopt December does not mean that in January the new eco-design becomes effective, because this is only the proposal from the Commission, and you probably know how it works. That will go into a co-decision process with Council and Parliament, and this co-decision process takes some time. On average, I think we are around 1.5 years, 2 years. In some rare cases, we have been faster. The Council and Parliament have been faster. In some other cases, it might take longer than the 1.5 year, 2 years. And then there will be the time for preparing the implementing acts. So all this to say that before 2024, maybe 2025, nothing is going to change. And until then, the existing eco-design will still be the legislation of reference. I hope that addressed the question.
Absolutely.
Paula, you want to say anything? You are on mute.
Sorry, I think the question on the revision of the eco-design was linked to the current revision of the MERP, but I see that you have replied in the chat, so I think it is comprehensive. I have maybe to answer to a question that I saw in the chat concerning the scope and I mean industrial use products or not. As we already said several times, the exact scope is not defined yet, and you know that SERP says that the widest, the broadest possible range of products should be covered by SPI. So we do not in the priority groups. There is the mention, for instance, of intermediate high impact products like steel. So this I would imagine that we can call this an industrial use product, but for the rest, we are not at this precision level yet.
Thank you very much, Paola and Michele, for your very important information. So we will have a Christmas present, if timing goes well, on the 15th of December, just before Christmas, and we will then wait a bit to have the first measures maybe in 2024, 2025.
Okay.
Yes, Michele? It seems you want to speak, Michele, but connection is not very good. You're on mute?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, sorry, my connection. If I may, I would like to ask a question to Professor Wegener, if I'm allowed.
Yeah, please.
In your presentation, you mentioned that when gathering the carbon footprint information, you allow for multiple methods. My question is, how do you then deal with the comparability of information? Because we know that using different methods, you get to different numbers. Is that not relevant for you, or are you addressing that in a different way?
No, that's a very good question. The thing is, when you look in the existing knowledge about life cycle assessment and product carbon footprint assessments, then you will learn that, or you know perhaps that there are many different methods available, and also different standards all over the world available. So what I want to show in the Z4E showcase is, first of all, I make the supply chain a very simple one, just to make it simple. Second, but it's complex enough if you look in the details. But second, that we apply standards which are already existing. For example, ISO 14067, that is available, that is feasible, but there are others, for example, ISO 14044 and others, where it is not clear which is better. And I don't want to have it set to show this is better than the other. But what we want to make is we make an assessment in this community, and then we will make a quality level beside that. We say, okay, this calculation was done with this metadata, and giving advice to the user of this product carbon footprint value, how it was achieved. So that it is, let me say, it's like if you measure a length, then you know, depending on the tool you use, you have a precision level. And that is the same principle. And it is yet, we started on the 22nd of June. We have a huge interest, a huge community who are working there. And the fantastic thing is, and I'm really excited about that, that we can apply the digital efforts we have done under the Industry 4.0 initiative with the digital nameplate, with the asset administration shell. We put this all on the table, and then we apply it in the use case or showcase with the product carbon footprint, because I want to show you, not only the whole community with a showcase, that it is feasible and that is not so difficult if we try and we are looking at the same direction. And if you like, I can go more in detail, not today, but we can make a beside meeting, and Stephanie, perhaps you can organize that I show you more in detail. And what I would like to invite you to be part of this, let me say, showcase in the way that you look at this, because we learn in this showcase what is feasible, what is not feasible. Because on the academic viewpoint, and I know that in detail, is everything is written down and everything is clear there. But we now have to put it into the realistic implementation. And to be honest, Siemens AG, we are strong and we have a lot of technology base. So for us, it is feasible. It is not a piece of cake, but it's feasible. But if you look in a company, small, medium-sized enterprise with 500 employees, they don't have such experts like Siemens has. So we have to make it in a way that small, medium-sized enterprises are feasible, able to do it. And the solution is very simple. We have to take standards which have been available, and which has been developed by the industry players, which are big and small companies. And then you know this principle of the new legislative framework with the harmonized standards. If a standard is harmonized, then we can apply it, and then we can make the conformity assessment under the rules of the new legislative framework, and that is feasible for the small, medium-sized enterprises. And what I try to do in this showcase, very simple, very straightforward, is I try to find out which standards are the right ones which can be used from the industry. That means in this case it's the ICT industries, and then we can apply. And from my viewpoint, it is feasible, it's makeable, and what I want to show as soon as possible. I try to do it at least on the Hannover Fair next year or on the SPS in November last year, to show the real showcase in data, so that you can touch it.
Thanks a lot, Dieter. We have only 5 minutes left, and of course we would need many more hours to discuss further, but unfortunately we need to quickly close our event. So we will move to the next
we can make a follow-up, Stephanie, or can't we? We can make a follow-up.
Of course, Dieter, don't worry, it's in my follow-up next slide. Thanks a million again to you all. So we will move to the next steps. Thank you. So again, next slide, please. Thank you. So the next steps, and it's a very nice transition with the discussion you just had, Michele and Dieter. So it's really serious, Michele and Paola. The Orgalim experts are available and they are really willing and happy to support the Commission representatives, not only in DG Grow, but also in DG Energy, DG Connect, and DG Environment, to help you developing this very important upcoming SPI legislative proposal and digital product passport to help you to make it work in practice. So we have the expert, and you just heard a few examples of how it could work or not in the reality. So really don't hesitate to use our expert, and as a concrete next step, we will organize a follow-up meeting between you and our Z4E expert with Mr. Wegner to go in more detail about the presentation you just did, and other experts will also be available. From Orgalim Secretariat side, we will organize several meetings in the coming weeks, including with Mr. Matthias Malgai, is the SPI coordinator in the European Commission and head of unit in DG Environment to continue to promote and explain our Orgalim views on SPI and digital product passports. And from Orgalim side, we will also continue to raise awareness among our members and to educate our members about this very important upcoming proposal and digital product initiative. We already had a webinar for Orgalim members only 2 months ago, and my feeling is that it will not be the last event on this topic, which is very important. And yeah, the discussion will for sure continue. Next slide, please. We would like to know your impressions about this event. We can for sure improve the future upcoming events, so please don't hesitate to share with us your views and give us suggestions for improvement for next events. So thank you in advance for filling in the survey. The presentations from today's webinar, together with an article summarizing our event, as well as the recording of the webinar, will very soon be posted on Orgalim website, and you will all receive an email from my communication colleagues as soon as all these things will be available on our website. Don't hesitate to subscribe to Orgalim newsletter to stay informed. Orgalim is not only active on SPI and digital product passport, but also on many other topics which might be of interest to you. Next slide, please. And I would like to thank you very, very much, all our speakers, for their very interesting presentations. We had many speakers, but we did it. Thanks a million to you all for being on time with your presentation. And it was really very much appreciated, and in particular to our guest speakers from the Commission, DG Grow, Paola and Michele. I know your agenda is crazy this day, so thank you so much for taking the time to attend our event today. Very much appreciate. If we would be in a real meeting room, you would receive millions of applause. Thank you so much, really, thank you, thank you. Next slide, please. And also thanks a million to all the participants. We were around 190 participants, which is really showing the high interest of this topic for many of you. I wish, sorry, we would be in the real world. I could see all the participants face to face in a nice room. Unfortunately, it's not possible yet, but thanks a million to you all for being behind your screens. We hope you enjoyed the event. It's for sure not the last discussion about this point. Thanks a million to you all. The event is closed. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.